was the very different reaction of Venezuelan expats in the United States. Let's take you back here to Stewart International Airport, which is north of New York City. We believe this is the plane that has transported Nicolas Maduro from the USS Iwo Jima, the warship that he was transported it in after his astonishing capture in an overnight raid of the Venezuelan capital, Caracas. Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, a renowned politician and lawyer in her own right, both taken from the presidential palace in Caracas by US Special Forces, helicoptered to the USS Iwo Jima. There was one still image of him taken and released by US authorities, mentioned by President Donald Trump in a wide-ranging press conference earlier, describing the incredible military operation overnight. It was an attack and an invasion, joint air, sea and land forces involved. And Nicolas Maduro is no longer in charge of Venezuela. There is some debate as to who actually is leading the country right now. Donald Trump claiming that the USA was effectively in charge of Venezuela and overseeing a transition of power. But since then, we have heard from Delcy Rodriguez, Venezuela's vice president, or essentially its acting president right now, and she was contradicting what was been said by Donald Trump and US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, which is their equivalent of a foreign minister. She did not sound like she was cooperating with American authorities whatsoever. It sounded like she did not agree with the US military operation. She described the removal of Maduro as a kidnapping and said that they would continue to defend their territory. We know that Donald Trump had threatened further strikes. He said a larger military operation had been planned if it was necessary, and he's still holding that over the heads of those in authority in Venezuela, said it will be put into place if it's needed. But for now, we're waiting to see if we're going to view the former Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, Celia Flores, coming out of that plane. We lost the signal temporarily. We'll sit with it for a little bit. And the reason that this second military operation was threatened is because they weren't sure of how successful it would be. Part of the surprise at this US attack and invasion of Venezuela and the capture of its president, Nicolas Maduro, was because it was such a covert military operation. President Donald Trump mentioning at a press conference earlier that no Western allies had been looped in on the prospect of the attack, just to maintain operational secrecy and to ensure the successful completion of the mission. And it was so successful that we understand there are reports that Nicolas Maduro and his wife were trying to head for a safe room, a panic room. But special forces, American special forces, were so quick that they intercepted him and prevented him from getting potentially to a position of safety. And Nicolas Maduro is no longer in Venezuela, and we believe he is in this aircraft at Stewart International Airport, north of New York City, and will be coming out shortly. The US Attorney General, Pam Bondi, saying he and his wife will face charges of drug trafficking. They'll be indicted and put on trial on American soil in an American court, which should be something that is not unprecedented, but quite extraordinary, and something that we certainly did not necessarily expect to see at this stage. We know there has been growing tensions between the USA and Venezuela over a number of weeks and months, ever since those US military attacks on suspected drug trafficking boats started back in September, I think it was. And we've seen a number of attacks since then, some controversy over the deaths of people amongst the wreckage of some of these boats. And we know that Nicolas Maduro in recent days had talked about cooperating with the United States to try and stop the flow of narcotics into America. And maybe that was a sign that he was possibly aware of what was heading his way. But the world's still in shock waking up to this news that the USA attacked and invaded Venezuela and physically removed Nicolas Maduro from power and from the country, along with his wife, Celia Flores, to take them to the USS Iwo Jima, and we think on this plane that's just landed at an airport outside of New York.